But
So sauna and then like just dunked in the pool to cool down.
yeah, and hoped that I float enough that I cool
Yeah.
down quick enough that I can.
That you could
I
use.
love the
Yeah.
idea that
Wow.
educated guess ends because Cora drowns because Dan get too hard.
Stuck in the pool. Hello, and welcome to the Educated Guest podcast with me, Dr. Dan O'Hare.
And me, Dr. Cora Sargeant.
Where two educational psychologists reveal how little they really know.
Each episode will discuss and reflect on topics or issues in education, psychology, or society, puzzling our way through and no doubt demonstrating just what we don't know.
But along the way, we'll welcome some educated guests who can shed light on some of the complexities we'll reflect on. So welcome to the Educated Guest podcast. Episode 11.
Episode 11. Woo!
Yeah.
Incredible. Who knew we'd get here?
Not me, genuinely not me. No, not at all. It's such a highlight. I mean, I know I said this in the recording of episode 10, like, I've really enjoyed it. I have. It's true.
Yeah, same. I love it. I think you said in the last episode as well, you didn't think it would be this fun to record. And I don't know how much fun other people have recording their podcasts, but I have a lot of fun recording this podcast. Probably too much fun for it to be legal.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we're going to spend this much time doing it, we need to make it fun. Like for us, as well as the listener.
Well, that is true. We do spend a lot of time together now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what is new, please? What have you been up to? Give me the rundown.
We've had the BPS kind of come and reaccredit the course at University of Southampton, which we're very thrilled about. The outcome was very abundantly positive. And I'll be straight with you. They said at one point they wanted to commend the leadership on the team, including Sarah and Cora. And I got carried hard in that commendation. Like my leadership, pretty weak ass. Sarah's leadership, world class. So like, it's very kind of them to mention me in that commendation. What was fun for us is that the one before the last one. So they're quinquennial for listeners, viewers who don't know, which is a word I did not know. It's every 5 years-ish, but often a little longer. And so I was a trainee in 2010 when the BPS came and accredited the course in 2010, and I was one of the people they interviewed. And now I'm one of the people they interviewed, and I'm the research director of the same course, which is... slightly terrifyingly incestual, but
16 years later.
16 years later, Dan. 16 years later, and a whole gender different.
What a change!
What a change! I know.
I was trying to think like what we've been doing. We last recorded on the 12th of January, and I don't feel like we've done a huge amount. We went to the theatre.
Ooh.
Bristol
What did
Old
you
Vic. So we saw a play. So at the Bristol Old Vic, they have the main theatre, and then underneath the main theatre, they have something called the studio, which is lovely. It's like a really it's U-shaped, like really intimate space. Often the plays down there are like maximum 3 or 4 actors, and that's it. And the stage is the stage is the floor. You're just right there around them.
Wow.
And they have a kind of really great. It's like £60 for 6 tickets, so you can see like 3 shows with 2 of you. So it's really, really well priced.
Gosh.
We saw a play called Small Town Boy, the name of which I think comes from that song. So that kind of, I think lots and lots of LGBT people will know that Small Town Boy song. The love that you need will never be found at home. It's kind of like that exploration. So the play was about death and discovery and acceptance, and it's a guy who's also a drag queen, and his partner dies. And his partner's family never knew about him, and he never really knew about his partner's family. And they want him to go down to Cornwall because they're trying to process his death. So they live in like deepest, darkest Cornwall, and he goes and arrives and stays as a drag queen the whole time in this tiny little rural Cornish village. And yeah, lots of grief and love, and lots of tears and laughter as well. There was a great deal. If anybody kind of like knows anything about drag, there's always lip syncing involved. So there was a great deal of lip syncing to songs.
Yes.
And really nice. And it kind of all builds up to like them realizing that the key thing that unites them is the love for this person, and kind of gets accepted into the family. Not that they ever rejected him; they just were like,
Didn't know about him.
stop being mean.
Did they not know about him because his partner who died feared the same thing he feared?
I think so. Yeah.
Amazing.
So one of the most like upsetting parts of the play.
About that.
Yeah, and the mum of the dead son, she's coming to terms with that as well. That he couldn't tell her, and how she finds, the pain that brings as well. And so it was really, really good, really good.
I'm so glad. That's such a cool. That's lovely and slightly tragic and incredibly recognizable, right? Very relatable problem.
Yeah.
My grandmother.
Although I've never gone to a Cornish village in drags.
You've never gone to a Cornish village in drag?
Dan? No.
Haven't we got an away day coming? Maybe you and I could go to Cornish village. Wait, if I go in drag, do I have to go as a drag king?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I guess so. Boy out for the day.
Yeah. So we have an away day. I'm so excited.
So excited.
Yeah. So where did this come from? I think so. Yeah. Obviously, everybody knows we had 10 episodes, and then I think that got us both thinking about like we kind of have planned, but we've also just been like, what are we going to do next? So I think like, we're going to have an away day together, and hopefully just think about what do we want to do? Where do we want to take this? And what sort of famos do we want to get on the podcast?
Yes. The direction of travel. Where do we want to arrive? Like we've got an entire year now. The podcast is doing well. You're bearing in mind, like, Classroom Psychology is my other podcast. It's been going for a couple of years. I need to record an episode this year. I've got one in the bag, but like, oh my goodness, this podcast is doing better than Classroom Psychology has ever done already. 10 episodes in.
Wow.
Which is, I genuinely think, and people keep coming up and saying, I listened to I saw Educate a Guess, or, I had somebody who came up to me at an event and they said, I haven't seen you in years. And then they said, well, I have seen you because I've been watching the podcast, but I haven't, you haven't seen me in years. Yeah. And I was like, so I love the idea that you and I are going to ponder the direction that we go, where we find ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, listeners, if you've got ideas and hopes and like desires for the podcast and various episodes, let us know. Like, get in the comments and let us know. Your feedback will influence our thoughts on the day. I had that experience. Somebody got in touch the other day because I've started now putting some of our shorts on reels on Instagram, and somebody got in touch. They were just kind of like mindlessly flicking through Instagram. They were like, hold on, I know that person. And it was one of our so random reels, I guess, because we follow each other. So just randomly popping up on people's Instagrams. And I think that was a clip with Matt. Matt used to work talking about inspirations and value affirmations. So
good.
So there is the away day, obviously, but it will also have cocktails and bar time. It's quite a nice pool in this. We're staying over, so that'll be quite.
We're gonna stay at the hotel. We're gonna go and play. We're gonna go. Wait. It's so funny, the distance between us, because you were like, and there's a pool, and I was like, oh, so we can play pool. That's not what you're saying.
That's not what I meant. No, there's quite a nice swimming pool and like sauna, and there's.
Dan, I've never been in a sauna. I love the idea of us going into a sauna. You and I need to bear in mind that if I get warm, I lose the ability to use my legs. So you may have to carry me out of the sauna once we get in.
Yeah, that makes me think don't go in the sauna.
Hey, listen, it's a temporary effect. As soon as I cool down again, legs will come back to me. So
sauna and then like just dunked in the pool to cool down.
And hope that I float enough that I cool down quick enough that you can. I love the idea that Educated Guess ends because Cora drowns because Dan let it get too hard.
In the pool. Shit, into
this
the pool.
Will help, I promise.
Wow. Okay, well, good to know that before. Like rather than being absolutely freaked out and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, fear not. Like, I'll be all right. For sure.
Yeah, that would be fun. I think that would be cool. Yeah. Are you going on a retreat?
I am. I've just. So for those who don't know, there is every year the Overcoming MS retreat. Overcoming MS, incredible organization. Shout out to them. They run, they do a bunch of stuff, but they run a retreat every year, which is generally speaking quite expensive. But they have had an anonymous donation. It must have been quite sizable because they have given a fairly considerable discount to people, and they're running a kind of bursary scheme for people who can't afford even the discounted version to make sure that it's more accessible. And as a consequence, I was like, oh, I can afford to go. I was actually trying, I was trying to find the money to go anyway, but like it, it's expensive. And so now I'm going to go. So I'm going to go. There's a bunch of online digital sessions. Guys, this is going to be one of those weird moments. My ambition, although I have a podcast where I constantly talk about being trans, and another podcast, this one, where I'm open about being trans, I'm going to try not to tell anyone that I'm trans. I'm going to try to just meet people and inhabit the world as me, not as the trans person in the room, because I'm the trans person in every room. I'm really excited. Like, I'm so excited to go.
So it's a physical retreat. You're going away. There is
a bunch of digital sessions, and then a physical retreat for a long weekend.
Where is it, and like what happens?
So they do. they teach you about diet and exercise and kind of wellness and the things that that will support somebody to live better with MS, or even to overcome MS. And I gotta be straight with you, I don't like, I'm glad that that's all there. I'm all for it. I'm there for one thing, and that's relationship.
Of course.
Just there.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that the retreat has this kind of like layer of, oh, this is what we're all here for. And then another layer, which is like, oh, this is what we're really here for, which is like connection and intimacy and genuine relationship. And like, I'm on a journey toward intimacy, and this is a good opportunity, I think, to find friends.
Oh, this is making me think about, so there's been a retreat that I've seen. It's I mean, the related theme is retreats. It's about the summer solstice, so it's in June. And I've been really like skeptical or reticent rather about whether to sign up. But yeah, what you're saying about like connection and relationships, it does kind of appeal. It's like a Friday to a Monday retreat, and there's all stuff that I would definitely like yoga and like ground to gut, like a menu, all from the estate that the retreat is being held on, like in Somerset nearby.
Oh wow!
Wild swimming and saunas and talks about like our connection with nature. So it's everything I would really enjoy. But it was that kind of sense of like, oh, what if I oddly like, what if I don't know anyone? Obviously, I won't know anyone who's going. But maybe what you're saying about the Overcoming MS retreat and that connection. Everybody is there for a reason, and like shared reasons, and that idea of like probably makes connection more likely.
It's really tricky, isn't it? I find that a bit it's a little bit like you don't know if you're going to meet someone you like. There's always that kind of like, there's always the possibility. It's just I suppose it feels like your first day of school, or first day in a new school where you're like, I don't know anyone. I don't know if anyone's gonna like me. I don't know if and then it's like, well, you're definitely not going to meet anyone if you don't go.
Yes, 100%, yeah. And I think sometimes like I've had a weird experience recently. So I do yoga in my regular classes, and I think I'd said like on a previous episode I joined a gym, and they do yoga as well. So I joined one of their classes, and I went for like a couple of weeks in a row. Same people in the room, but every time I went in, like it was just silent. Like nobody was talking at all. And I thought, okay, this is like my third or fourth time being here. So, and I know these faces now. And I just started talking. I was like, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? Like, oh, good to see you again. And then other people started talking. And I thought like, I just
Shifted
like
the social norms.
if you shift the norm. I'm not saying I'm not. I'm so powerful I can shift social norms, but in that space, it was like it's okay to talk. Like we're seeing each other every weekend,
Yeah.
so we can do that.
Like, I think there's research that says it takes like 30% of people in a group to shift a social norm. So I don't think a person can do it individually, but except in a circumstance, I guess, where everybody is ready.
Yeah.
So like, as soon as you break the boundary, then like a good chunk of people are willing to do the same thing, and then
Definitely.
more and more people do. So maybe you can create the ripple effect if I do. I love that. I think that's so cool. So are you still going to that yoga group?
No.
Okay.
Not,
and they're like reminiscing about the halcyon days when nobody talked to each other. Like.
I just left. No, it's because they moved. They got rid of it. They got rid of that session, and it doesn't fit with my other bits and pieces that I do. So they moved it an hour later, which I can't do. So yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's fine. Like actual yoga people, like it's such a great like little community. Yeah, it's really the yoga teacher really struggles. So Nina is the teacher. Shout out Nina, amazing teacher. Sometimes she struggles to like get us all to shut up at the start of class.
Then we actually have to do yoga, guys.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, sometimes I think she needs one of the tambourines that primary school teachers have, like or the clapping kind of approach. But yeah, I have heard from from Nina and previous yoga teachers who have done this class. The community's kept consistent over years, but we've had different teachers, and several of them have said like they do various yoga teachings, and people just come in, don't talk, do the yoga, go, and like our kind of little community is very different. Like we're always chatting. We go out for drinks, like go out for an odd curry, which is really nice. I see these people like more than I see most people in my life.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're doing it every week and then you go out with them,
3 hours a week, every week. Like,
whoa, Dan, 3 hours a week?
3 sessions, 1 hour per session.
You do this 3 times a week?
Yeah, at least.
Dan.
Yeah.
Whoa. No wonder you're building relationships with these folks. You really are spending a lot of time with them.
Right. So we episode 11. So we decided to do something a bit different, and go all as if we're like really important podcasters and do like a Q&A with listeners, which is scary but also fun. So earlier this week, kind of put out a call for questions, and quite a few people got back, which was really really nice.
This is the risk of a Q&A episode, isn't it? That like you'll put you put it out there, hey, send in your questions, and then like it's just dust on the plane, completely empty, and then suddenly this extraordinary response from a lot of people who had lots of really interesting questions that are going to be. I mean, I suppose the important thing to bear in mind for me is that we're not looking to answer these questions so much as ponder them, because I have no idea about the answer to any of these questions, but I am interested to, wrestle with them together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think you said that on the Discord yesterday or the day before, which I kind of knew, but obviously we're not answering them. But I had like a panic of like, oh my God. So even though I knew subconsciously that obviously we're not going to answer these, actually you saying explicitly was like, okay, we don't need an answer. We could just kind of.
But that's a process I had to go through internally as well, where I was like, oh goodness, I better read all of the literature that's ever been written.
I know about these quite wide topics as well. So.
Yeah, and I guess like a lot of them are questions that are related to like really tricky stuff, right? Like it's not, hey, how do I change the tire on my car? It's like, hey, how do we change the education system?
I've got ideas about how to change the education system. I had less idea about a tire. So.
That's reasonable.
You need something to hike the car up.
A car hiker, yes.
A car hiker? God, I know. Jeez. I'm sure there are like men of the past that are just like, Jesus. Hey, I can change a light bulb and rewire a plug, which I think is like,
Oh,
Great.
that you can rewire a plug?
Yeah, hell yeah. And, change a fuse, all that stuff.
I definitely can't rewire a plug. I can change the tire. I'll change your tire. You can rewire my
great.
plugs.
I'll rewire the plugs and change the tires. Great. We our old car was really old, so we had to. It was going to cost more to repair it than the car was worth. So we had to get like a new car, not a new car, but a new car.
Did you blew a tire and it was so like it would have been such a lot to replace that you changed your car? Is that what you said?
No, there was no. The car was like. It sounded like
you knew how to replace a tire so poorly that you changed your car rather than
yeah. It was just one blown tire. We're like, no, that's it. We need a new one. So that's the car tire question. So thanks to whoever sent that in.
Well done. Well, I think that was just us.
That was just us. So should we start? Should we start some of these questions?
Let's do it. Do you want me to read the first one? I got it here.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
From Ellie, an educational psychologist. I'd be interested in hearing about the impact of diet, nutrition, and sleep, and what we as EPs can influence around this. It's coming up so much in my casework and ties in with your recent discussion about the impact of poverty too. From Ellie.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, I think it is something that I think we don't necessarily seem to talk about a lot or think about a lot, but it seems so integral to so many aspects of, like, if we just think about personally, like my diet and sleep is so integral to so many aspects of my life that whenever I'm factoring in issues that I'm experiencing, even on a daily basis, I do have a check-in of like, when's the last time I had like a, proper meal, or like, Tuesday night, I was feeling really run down and I thought I was getting ill. Turns out I just needed a longer sleep. Like the next day I was absolutely fine. And I just think like we have lots of frameworks, don't we? We have like the interactive factors framework, and we have the Monson problem solving model, and there's the Komura problem solving model. One of the big models that we often talk about is kind of like the biopsychosocial model, biological, psychological, social. And I'd be interested to hear your reflections on this. My sense broadly is that I feel like what we actually do is the psychosocial model, that we don't often think about that bio. Is that fair?
I think that's totally fair. Yeah. I think it's quite, I think the psychological literature is probably ahead of us in terms of understanding the impact of sleep. I mean, maybe it's a question of us feeling a little bit disempowered to affect it, right? It's quite tricky to affect somebody's sleep without being very trite in the advice, I find, where you're like, oh, let's talk about sleep hygiene. And almost all parents I've ever talked to about sleep hygiene are just rolling their eyes because they're like, of course, I've got Google. I can, we tried to master this problem ourselves.
Yeah.
And diet is very frequently affected by poverty and by family circumstances. It's difficult to affect those things. But the research around food that I have found shows that things like teaching children, young people about nutrition and about the skills of cooking improves their diet because they are motivated to, they can solve the problems that they're faced with if they have the skills that they need to be able to solve them. So I think maybe me saying these are systemic factors and maybe there's not much we can do is a bit of a cop-out. Maybe there are, maybe this is something we should focus on more, and maybe I just a bit a bad EP. Which wouldn't be the first time.
But I think, like, I guess my understanding of, and I guess it's a competence thing here as well, right? I think lots of EPs would absolutely, and lots of professionals who work with children and young people would say that the aspects of diet, nutrition, and sleep are so important to understanding, like, the life experience and quality of life of children and young people. But I'll speak from an EP perspective because I know I've heard this. I guess like I've heard lots of colleagues say, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a sleep psychologist, and so that feels like outside of the realms of my competence. But I guess for me, that's a question about, but what are you necessarily thinking that your role is? I think, there's lots of things that EPs aren't experts in, but can factor in those factors into their formulations about what might be going on for that child. And we would, for example, do that and also say it's probably quite useful, if we're factoring something about language, talk to and listen to the speech and language therapist who will have a much greater and nuanced insight. But we would factor that into our kind of formulations about what might be going on for a child. So I think it does strike me as a little odd that maybe we don't include issues of nutrition and sleep and physical activity even. We know, for example, that young people are becoming much more inactive. Everybody, sorry, not just young people, but everybody is becoming much more inactive. That will have an effect. I can't personally go more than 2 days without doing exercise before I feel worse. And I'm not sat in a classroom for 6 hours a day, 5 days. I have the most, the kind of freedom to get up and do. I've got a standing desk here, for example. That helps. Yeah. But I wonder, is it about normalizing? Because I have had a sense when I've talked to colleagues about this, I have had a sense of reticence because, but asking a family about their food and their diet, that could be really shaming. It's like, 100%. Like,
yeah, I do think that is true. I think maybe that's maybe you've hit the nail right on the head with why I haven't talked to families about this often is because I feel that they're going to feel blamed. Certainly when I've talked to families about sleep and I talk about sleep hygiene, of course, the implicit message is you're just not doing sleep right, which is that's a very neoliberal view of sleep, right? But actually also the reason why people struggle with diet and sleep is often our fault as an education system, right? Because, we could invest huge amounts of money in nutrition for children and young people for school meals, right? Like school meals are a huge opportunity for us to make sure that all children and young people have a good, sound, extremely rich in nutrition meal, right, in the day. And we don't spend anywhere near enough money on school meals or on chefs in school. And as a consequence, I don't know if you would agree, but my experience of school meals are that they are a mixed bag. And, good people doing incredibly creative things with next to no funds, I think is, really challenging. And sleep similarly, right? We talked in our sleep episode about how adolescents chronotype shifts. And
exactly.
We don't
structure.
Yeah. Even though the research is very clear that just having afternoon schooling or just having a delayed school time improves the well-being for adolescents. And huge problems in secondary schools now around emotional well-being and EBSA and EBSNA and children, young people just not wanting to go to school or being persistently absent. And sleep has got to be part of that. And for some reason, I mean, we talked about in our episode that that children and people's emotional well-being is to some extent kind of affected quite heavily by the difference between their natural wake times and when we force the poor guys to get up and make them sleep deprived. So, there are things that we can do as an education system today that would probably change these things dramatically. And that we don't, I think, perpetuates a problem that is very difficult for us to solve as individual EPs.
I think you're right about the interpretation of it being quite an individualistic, also it's my fault that I'm not feeding, my child right. Whereas I think when I consider issues around sleep and diet and physical activity, I'm considering it kind of like the way the systems are constraining all of that. Like we absolutely, and I'm thinking about the burgeoning research between like the gut brain connection and the gut immune system connection, and
Yes.
how that is there's so much research coming out now about how our gut is absolutely linked to how we feel, how we think. Again, it's not my area of expertise, it's just an area of interest for me, but the way that deficiencies in different vitamins can seriously affect like our cognition or our behavior. I'm pretty sure there was, for example, I can't remember if it was in Denmark, or I think it was a Danish prison study, who I think it might have been like omega-3, like supplemented
Yeah.
prisoners with omega-3.
Okay.
And like one of the key now the specifics of this study might be all wrong. That's the caveat to this. I think it's the Danish prison
Educate a
study.
guess.
Yeah, I'm taking an educated guess from very, very poor memory, but they supplemented the prisoners with a nutrient. I think it was omega-3, and like one of the big impacts was how behavioral issues and physical violence and aggression just completely dropped. Um,
Yeah.
and I do think, Kimberly Wilson is a psychologist. I think I've talked to you about her before. Her book is, how the food we eat is fueling our mental health crisis. She presents a lot of compelling evidence about how nutrient deficiency is linked to a range of, psychological, emotional experiences. That's not to say that ensuring that we aren't deficient in those nutrients will solve the problems. There's structural issues around that, but we are biological also. And we are living in systems which perpetuate, I guess, for example, very cheap ultra processed food on supermarket
Yeah.
shelves. We're living in a system which is removing activities like food technology from schools, so we're having children who are not experiencing that process of why the science behind nutrition, how it affects you, how you do that. So it's, yeah, I think there is a difficulty of helping people see that when we might consider this, we're not thinking about it as an individualistic problem, but rather an effect of systems.
Totally. That I think is the thing that we need to do. But we've talked about this before. The power of educational psychology reports to apply pressure in that way, right? By raising the complicity is in, like, I know in my practice where I've been like, well, I can't really change this child's diet. I can't say, school, you need to do a better job of feeding this kid in the day. Yeah. I've sometimes done a little bit of that, but by drawing people's attention to the realities of the research, like Dabra Volskaj and colleagues in where was it, 2024, association between diet and mental health outcomes in a sample of 13,887 adolescents in Canada. They found very straightforwardly that baseline, like, good food consumption is associated with things like vegetable and fruit consumption, positively associated with psychological well-being, and ultra-processed food being associated with increased severity of depressive anxiety symptoms, particularly among male students, and poorer psychological well-being.
Right.
Follow-up. So, like, these aren't particularly, and then in the huge meta-analyses that I was reading in preparation for the episode, like, that's supported in the wider literature. I mean, it's quite tricky in most of it to know about directionality, because people who struggle with their mental health are probably going to have poorer diets. But some of this research is looking like there certainly is some directional link between poor nutrition and mental health. And so it's not the thing that is going to wind me up is that when we know this is the case, and we know that sleep impacts mental health, in our episode we talked about it a lot, and we have a mental health crisis in adolescence and a kind of polycrisis that's fueling it, we could absolutely support them in just a couple of key ways by better funding school lunches for children and people to make sure that they get the nutritional requirements met during the day, and then move school start times to accommodate the chronotype of adolescence. And I think we could make a big impact on, at least some significant impact on, mental health.
Putting back the play time that has been lost from schools, in the last couple of decades to increase physical activity. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay, got another question for you. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this question comes from, well, this is kind of like two people. So Keith and Mary, both educational psychologists. And I think this is a tricky one. So I'm glad I'm asking this first. And the broad question is kind of like, what is educational about the EP role currently? So we're educational psychologists. And so Mary Ann Keith talks about this, and Mary said, my work as a EP is at best partially psychological, but with so much statutory work in a system that's far from putting learning at the centre, and a curriculum that feels not fit for purpose, and not sure what educational work happens.
Oh,
wow.
Heavy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing to say is, I have no doubt it can feel like that. And your feelings are valid. Is that Mary, did you say?
Mary, yeah, and Keith, yeah.
Mary and Keith, your feelings are valid. And I think in the darkest of times in our education system, I think it is difficult to feel like we are able to make an impact on children and young people's education in the way that we might once have done. But I think there's two things to bear in mind. The first thing is that need is the catalyst of invention. And I think there are no greater people to solve the problem of how do we get back to our values in a difficult time than educational psychologists. Complex problem solving is what we do. And if we, in our supervision, in our team meetings, can consider how do I make education at the heart of what I do again as the complex problem we need to solve, I think we can create creative solutions.
This question really did connect with me. And I think I wonder if what's driving that is that really strong, I think a really strong feeling. It's not just EPs, lots of people who work in education have that, like, the curriculum is kind of often, particularly for younger children, feels really developmentally inappropriate. Certainly doesn't feel flexible enough to meet the needs of all learners. And then I guess like the tension, and maybe this connects to conversations that we had previously about like moral injury or moral burnout. Then I'm just going to own it. I definitely struggled with the thought of like, am I just like trying to help this child like just survive school?
Yes.
Rather than actually being involved in a process that really focuses and helps learning. Because I think I feel like there's been a shift that of our kind of professional focus being on, for example, the social and emotional and mental health factors related to learning. So I feel like a lot of VPs do a lot of work around SEMH. And then I have reflected, like, we're educational psychologists, and so what about cognition and learning and how that ties it? The experience of successfully learning can improve your social, emotional, and mental health. It's not just one direction. You don't have to let's build up the SEMH bar before we can move on to the learning. They interact, and so it does feel really hard when you're seeing learners who don't fit into this inflexible mold of the curriculum, because then it feels like, well, am I just working to kind of, am I just working within, particularly within the statutory process, to kind of think about thresholds and provision and outcomes and funding? Is that really learning? Is that educational, or is that just bureaucratic? It's really tough. Like, I don't know. Now I'm feeling slightly depressed.
Well, I mean, it is, in a sense, I think probably EPs will recognize that there is a bit of a crisis in the education system right now in a few different ways. Apart from the kind of poly crisis leading us to have huge systemic problems that create challenges for mental health that we can't solve, right? We can't solve the climate crisis, and yet children and young people look to us to be like, is this something I shouldn't be anxious about? And we can't, in all good conscience, say no. Absolutely something you should be anxious about. The future is in trouble. And, AI creating a complex kind of jobs environment where entry-level work. So young people in secondary school looking to a future, just not sure what their future is going to look like, what's going to be, what options are available to them. So, we're in a world where there are a lot of problems that we can't solve.
Right. And yet, like, when, that question about educational, like, what helps this child learn?
Right.
I feel like there's a real tension. There's me focusing on the minutiae of like how reading happens,
Yeah.
how how a child maps like graphemes and phonemes and how that's
Yeah.
related to speech sounds. When we've just had a conversation about so many children are not sleeping enough, they're not getting the right diets and,
Right.
and nutritional intake, they're not getting
Right.
the right physical activity, they're living in unsafe neighborhood. It's like,
Yes.
how are we yeah, that's just so, what helps this child learn, what would help this child learn is all of those things being kind of part of a successful experience of life. Now we can think about phonemes and graphemes and like, yeah.
This is, I think, like right at the heart of the question of how do we make educational psychology educational again? I think the thing that we need to do is to educate people about, because the way that we have been trained to think about mental health, to be like, oh, if this kid was more resilient, how do we make this kid more resilient? How do we support their resiliency? How do we, and the way that we've been taught to think about like, the way that children and people manage their lives is all very individualistic. And I think if we can teach people, if we can say in our reports, if we can educate people to be like, listen, no wonder this kid is struggling with anxiety. This is a polycrisis, right? No wonder this kid is struggling with their mental health. They're not getting enough sleep. No wonder they're struggling with their mental health. They aren't getting the nutritional value that they need from the food that they're eating, which is, this is which is not a blame of anyone, right? Because when we lean into, or at least when we don't challenge the meritocratic view, then people will blame themselves for those things.
Yeah.
And I think if we can educate people about a different way of thinking about these problems and get back to, our genuine values about, because I think the problem fundamentally is like when we get sort of over acculturated into school culture, we can lose perspective. We can be like, oh, how do we think about added value? How do we think about, the 100 high frequency words? How do we think about whatever? The key thing is the next step of their learning, which is important, but maybe there's a sort of zooming out that we can do and say, actually, maybe what we need to do is to educate people around what are the factors that are going to affect mental health that we have no control over.
Ready for the next question?
Ready.
Okay, so this is from Abby. And Abby talked about how that we're hearing more and more about rejection sensitivity, like within kids. But her question and thought is around like also this as something that we might be experiencing ourselves as professionals. And Abby said it'd just be really interested to hear your reflections, given that you both have the courage to hold different conversations on your platforms. So interesting one. I mean,
so given, what was the end bit there? Given
that we both have the courage to hold difficult conversations on our platforms. So I'm wondering if this is coming out of maybe a response to, was it episode 5? It's not you, it's us.
Yeah.
We had a lot of contact from a lot of people who talked about that experience of difference and maybe some of the unpleasant or difficult experiences that came from that, maybe because they wanted to do things a different way, or they saw that they might be doing things differently to others, or yes, I'm wondering if it's coming out of that episode, which people like really emotionally engaged with.
Really lovely. Yeah, it's such a good question, and I feel very seen. Like, some professionals have some rejection sensitivity. Yep, I got ghosted by my Bumble BFF recently, and I feel like I have died inside. We only had like 3 messages to each other, but that'll do it.
So, I mean, firstly, like, I guess, like, what is rejection sensitivity?
Rejection sensitivity, I had to really look this up, actually, because like I had a sneaking suspicion of what it was, but I didn't know. The best article that I found was the link between rejection sensitivity and borderline personality disorder, a systematic review and meta-analysis, not for its content, except that it has a really good definition of rejection sensitivity in it, by Foxall and colleagues in 2019. It's very interesting. They say that rejection sensitivity is thought to develop out of an individual's early experience of rejection, neglect, or abuse. More broadly, it's thought to develop in situations out of overt or covert, active or passive, emotional or physical acts where others communicate rejection in some way. Okay. Rejection sensitivity is a personality disposition characterized by an oversensitivity to rejection. But I don't know. That's very good. In particular, Downey and colleagues define rejection sensitivity as a cognitive, affective processing disposition to anxiously expect, readily perceive, and overreact to rejection. To anticipate anxiously, to very easily perceive, and then overreact emotionally to rejection.
Right. I guess my question would be, okay, so I kind of feel like that's like it's all in your head.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like as if structural kind of arrangements and power and relationships and all that don't have a say. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about some of those definitions.
Well, I mean, when they say overreact emotionally, I think maybe the way in which they're framing it is like compared to most people overreacting. But I think the thing we have to keep in mind is that these are adaptive responses. It's a bit like The Different Faces of Attachment is a great book, which looks at attachment around the world and challenges the view of like secure versus insecure attachment, saying that some attachments are inherently problematic or pathological, saying that all attachment is an adaptive response to a situation. So I think this rejection sensitivity, I think we can think of it in the same way, that all emotional reactions to rejection are adaptive to the context in which they originated, right?
Right. Because I feel like in relatively homogeneous systems, like difference in and of itself, like if you are different in some way, that difference in and of itself can invite rejection. If there's a homogeneity of group, or and I'm just going to own it. I've definitely experienced that 100%. Like that feels really close to like some of my own experiences. And yeah, I feel like, does that mean that within the social context, that sensitivity to rejection actually is kind of like a learned adaptive response because you kind of know what's coming?
Yeah.
At least, trying to keep yourself safe by knowing what's coming.
Yes. And I think there's research around, I can't remember the authors, talking about experiences of marginalization by marginalized communities and how it can lead to the sort of interpretation of benign situations negatively, in a kind of paranoia where you interpret as it, like I've talked about this before, it happens a lot. I'm sure you've experienced it too, where you're just like out and someone lingers a view in your direction, and the benign interpretation is, oh, that person's just kind of, they like your hair today or something. The sort of the mutation of that experience in the head of a marginalized person is that person has, clocked me, or that person is like, is that person trans, or whatever. Or just like, you are expecting their rejection of you.
Yeah.
So maybe you're right. Yeah. Like marginalized folk have experienced societal rejection and therefore expect it in otherwise benign situations.
And I wonder about if it can become, and again, this is me just owning my experience, about whether it can become a learned thing, even in situations that espouse a very kind of inclusive. So like an inclusive like outlook. So I mean, sharing time, I guess. Like I have chaired a professional body, and I feel like I've seen the context that create this if we're calling it rejection sensitivity, like from the inside, like some of the exclusion that I'm talking about doesn't or didn't feel accidental or just like the product of poor systems. I feel like I have seen significant energy and effort like directed at like, the intentional maintenance of existing like structures of power and intentional shutting down of different voices and different ways of working. And I think that includes like contribution where people's contributions can be minimized or who is kind of positioned as difficult or unprofessional, like whatever that word means, and what ideas are just like allowed to go nowhere. Even in the face of like kind of like in the context of that like professional body, even in the face of kind of like overwhelming democratic consensus, the idea is just allowed to go nowhere. And I think if you repeatedly experience that kind of like intentional exclusion, particularly in spaces that claim to really value inclusion and diversity, I think it does teach you like it teaches you something about how safe it is to be visible. So I guess in that context, it feels like rejection sensitivity isn't like a cognitive distortion or a personality issue, but like a rational response to the reality you're in. And so maybe that makes me think like with those reflections, like maybe it isn't always like about misreading people, but learning like through experience, like how power operates in those spaces.
Right. So anticipating a reality of marginalization, not just like seeing the marginalization in benign situations, but anticipating it because you have had too much experience to know,
right.
to be able to believe that anyone in a powerful situation is not going to reinforce those power structures that marginalize you.
Yeah, maybe. But then I guess that's like, so what do you do? Like, I guess
is this episode just you and I feeling really bad about the world? We just gonna feel terrible.
I don't know, like because I think that's kind of all. If we're thinking about, I mean, my story was about, even like my story is about me chairing a professional, like co-chairing a professional like body organization. So even those like positional power, my experience was it doesn't even protect you from that. And then it's kind of like, so what do you do in terms of like looking after yourself? I guess that rejection of various aspects was redirected for me into things like EdSci and that community. And maybe it's about knowing who your tribe is, who your group is, where you are kind of where you are included. Is it justifiable to be like, actually, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to find or create my own space. I don't know. It's a hard one about like, what do you do with that?
I like, because this is what we do, right? Like you being very honest about your experience. I think inherent in the question, which inherent in my definition from this research, is a kind of, we're gonna labor the neoliberal point, but it does say that it implies that the reason you're struggling with relationships is because you're sensitive to rejection. Whereas, and it's the same with like with all of the other factors that can affect mental health that we tend to overlook because they're big and structural or societal or challenging to change. It's very easy for a young person or for us ourselves to be like, oh, if only I wasn't so sensitive to rejection, then I would be happier. If only I was happier, then I'd be happier. If only I wasn't depressed, I'd be happier. If only something to do with me. If only I was different. Yeah. And I think bringing us back to education in educational psychology, I think there is something we can do through our integrated conceptualizations, if you're getting into Monson and Fredrickson, or through our formulation, teach people and potentially teach ourselves that the reason for us feeling sensitive to rejection is legitimate. The experiences we have had have taught us that rejection is likely, have taught us that connection is dangerous,
Mm.
And that's my gig. Like, I've been doing therapy for a beat, and it's getting real right now. And one of the things that, that has come out in my own therapy is that historically, especially in my childhood, connection was dangerous for a bunch of different reasons. And so you learn that either you don't need it, or you learn to be very frightened when you find it, for the fear that being attached fully might mean inevitable loss.
Yeah.
So familiar with rejection.
Yeah.
That you don't connect at all.
Is part of that about kind of learning to recognize and to help other people recognize that, like, some reactions actually belong to the environment. It's not in here. Yeah. Wow, we got deep. But
I think, owning that, and, and then kind of, like you say, crafting a world for yourself where you can teach yourself that relationships don't have to be threatening.
Yeah. And even in a professional space where you don't just have to, you can like find or craft or create spaces where you don't have to be on high alert all the time.
Right.
Like, that feels
where you are safe.
Important. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Wow.
So what a kind of thing to teach a child or young person who's feeling sensitive to rejection, that it isn't that you need to be less sensitive. It is that we need to create relationships in which you feel safer, where connection is less likely to risk rejection because it is safer. It is a problem that we can solve relationally, systemically, that we can solve together in how we sculpt relationships around you.
Yeah.
We're going to make them safe.
Yeah.
Next question. You ready?
Ready.
All right, this is from Keith, educational psychologist. AI tools are entering classrooms and children's lives at rapid pace. I wonder, what is educational psychology's role in understanding their impact on attention, learning, social development, and well-being now and in the future?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, firstly, like, I feel like all of these tools and this new way of thinking and the effect that this is having on us and the world, like, part of me thinks, like, who asked for this? Like, who asked for this? And you've got these, like, what feels like megalomaniacal tech bros that are just like, nobody voted. There's been no, like, democratic, nobody voted for this, and here we are, like, being not just education, but, like, in many instances our own profession, like, just wholesale attempting to adopt these AI tools and approaches. But I do think, I mean, firstly, I just fully agree with Keith's question about, like, what is our role in kind of understanding, what was it, like, the impact on attention, learning, social development, well-being, mental health.
Just those things.
That. Like, I guess, I don't know. Is that the answer? Like, maybe it's so new and, like, that we just don't know what the impact is. And yet there's so much money and marketing and, like, capital going into, like, shoving this in education. I'm pretty sure, for example, that recent reviews of EdTech, so educational technology, has shown that it doesn't benefit learning. And in some cases, it just kind of has the opposite effect. So that's kind of where I'm a bit at with that. Like, I do feel kind of frightened and concerned about the use of large language models and AI for its impact on our creativity, its environmental and climate impact. And yeah. Oh no, now I'm in, like, panic mode. Stop the, like, I just feel like
this whole episode is just one long. We're just panicking the whole time.
Yeah. I don't know whether, maybe it's just that at the moment our role is to try and find out more. There must be, there must be, like, research that's happening internationally about how this is influencing like, even not even children's, I guess, but like everybody's like, attention. There was a
Yeah.
journal I saw, I think an American Psychological Association journal. One of the editors of the journal shared their AI policy the other day, and
Oh, really?
I saw it on LinkedIn. I think it was Victoria Clark that shared it. Victoria Clark of Brown and Clark, the
Aaron Clark.
meta-analysis. And I know they've done a lot of thinking about, how inappropriate the use of like generative AI is in the process of qualitative analysis for research. And like the journal editor said something in this policy around, you know, as if the whole, in qualitative analysis and qualitative work, as if the whole point isn't about the enjoyment of discovery and creativity. And
Yes.
that kind of really rung true for me, and how much, that might get in the way for children and young people. I don't know, but am I being too pessimistic?
I don't know. I mean, I think you're right that one of the big challenges here is that, research publication takes time. Good research takes time to conduct and to get published. You're talking about, it's 5-year process easy.
Yeah.
And large language models didn't really, I mean, they existed, but they weren't in the public zeitgeist 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, the research is going and going fast, but every time you get a new study out, the technology has moved on leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds, as a phrase that my grandmother would have said. It just keeps progressing at an exponentially faster rate, and we don't have any opportunity to catch up research-wise. So I have absolutely no idea. But there are some writers who are writing about the potential problems, and I found a good study from Decker and Sumanesakara from IJRISS, a systematic review of the impact of artificial intelligence, digital technology, and social media on cognitive functions. Right. And they give a couple of key warnings. It's a big article. It's really very good, well worth a read. The cliff notes are, the first is a problem with AI bias. And they talk about AI bias not only in terms of AI decision making, which is actually really important anyway. Like, we've got a lot of currently AI informed applications and then AI reading applications for jobs, and then accidentally repeating the biases in their training data and the decisions that they make, right? Racial biases in particular, but biases of all kinds. And of course, because it's all, the black box of stuff that goes on under the hood, often you don't know until you see the outcome data what those biases are. You can't see them in process. But also they were saying, like, there are AI biases in, for example, the memories that are algorithmically kind of fed back to us through our own feeds, right? Like, we create, the classic example is going to be something like Facebook will every so often post, 10 years ago, here's a memory from 10 years ago. Did you remember this? And the authors are like, those kind of moments where our own memories are so heavily supported technologically, the AI is algorithmically choosing which memories to feed back to you, and which memories you consider most important and which memories the AI consider most important to you, unlikely to be the same thing. And all the unconscious biases in shaping our own, like, self-perception, our own, like, memories of ourselves, and our own, fundamentally, therefore, our identities are shaped by the bias inherent in the AI.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it feels like the introduction of these kind of AI tools and applications and approaches and technologies within education have, and maybe this is not different to any other kind of introduction of technology, but has kind of been shaped by the AI companies and the marketeers, not by the findings of robust kind of science and research to inform, if we are going to use this, how best, when, for what tasks, what skills do children require before their engagement with this kind of stuff. Because 100% they're going to be, young people and children are going to be engaging with these tools at home.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Every mobile's got, if you're an Android user, Gemini. you just ask whatever, and Gemini will talk to you. Chat GPT, it feels like it's just becoming a part of life again. As I'll go back to the point of which part of life that nobody actually asked for was just kind of hoisted upon us, I guess. And yeah, it just, again, maybe I'm just being a bit naive of the idea that this is different to the introduction of any other kind of new thing in education, as if like the research and understanding comes first. Maybe it doesn't at all. Maybe it's always research and understanding and the psychological understanding playing catch up to something that's now just there. Yeah,
I think so. I think you're right. I think the one of the other risks they talk about is cognitive autonomy, and I think there's something unique about AI that's that's a bit closer to algorithmic, like TikTok feeds or YouTube short reels, right? Reels, feeds, whatever.
Yeah.
Where the algorithm is choosing the thing that it thinks you are going to be most engaged by, and maybe will feed that to you every so often in a kind of random pattern to kind of reinforce, in sort of behaviorist terms, reinforce your use of the app in a way that will most engage you.
Yeah.
But there's research right now going on around TikTok. The research is catching up with TikTok and YouTube Shorts, saying that short form content is actually problematic for executive functioning, because when you're engaged in an app that's just constantly feeding you stuff that you're going to be engaged by, your own attention regulation systems are not being used.
Yeah.
You're cognitively offloading your attention regulation to an app. And AI, the opportunity for it to impede our cognitive autonomy, like our ability to, to reason, to be, as you say, creative, right? Our ability to be critical in our analysis, and fundamentally things like our ability to, like, one of the pieces I've been reading recently was about relationships, and how, if you are familiar with chatting with ChatGPT or with, character AI or whatever, they will always be very affirming, deeply attentive, like always there for you at a moment's notice. And they will always validate your perception. And like, real relationships will be challenging in a bunch of ways. They should be. And so can real relationships match up to the kind of ability of AI to be affirming and connected and like to feed you validation? The last thing these authors talk about is data privacy.
Oh, right.
Classically, like whenever you talk to ChatGPT about whatever you're talking about, ChatGPT is going to just feed that data right up the chain to its own training data, and who knows where beyond.
Are you ready for some quick fire, more fun questions?
Fun questions, Dan?
Fun questions.
Always.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Max. Max is an EP. What is your favorite game and why?
Are we talking video games?
Game. You interpret that how you want.
I play a lot of video games, dear listener. I also play Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe Dungeons and Dragons is my answer to that question. I always play D&D. What about you, Dan? What are you into these days?
Yeah, favorite. So I've recently started playing video games again, and I really love Assassin's Creed.
Oh wow! Okay, sure. What, Mirage, the most recent one?
No, the most recent one is Shadows, so set in ancient Japan, isn't it?
I thought. Of course it is. Yes, it is.
And I really love ancient Japanese history and stuff. So really enjoying that. But I know Max is a board game player. So I wonder if she might be thinking about board games.
Okay.
I don't know what my favorite board game is. I'm not a fan of games that rely on luck.
Okay.
Now, we know that I'm pretty competitive. I like to win. And I feel like luck is often an obstruction to winning.
And also, if you win through luck, like you said before,
not a real win.
It means it's not a real win.
No, exactly. So I like games that require strategy, tactics, planning. So we recently played Azul, the tile game.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like it's Portuguese tiles, and you have to arrange the tiles, and there's like a wall that you're tiling, and there's a floor in case the tiles fall onto the floor, and you've got to structure your tiles in certain ways to get more points.
Cool.
So if you have like a different tile in every line, that gives you a bonus. If you've got a different tile in every vertical line, that's another bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, so I like those kind of games where you really have to like think ahead tactically to win.
Very cool.
Rather than just like, oh, I got a 2. So, that's the bit of D&D that I actually really don't like. Like, throw it, a saving throw. Oh, I got 2. Right. Well, there's nothing I can do about that because the dice just landed on a 2. So
D&D's emergent storytelling, the point is what comes next.
Yeah.
Have you ever played Unstable Unicorns?
No.
Unstable Unicorns is an absolute gem of a game. It's very tactical and very funny because the cards are all unicorns.
Okay.
Baby unicorns or special unicorns with powers or all kinds of stuff. And your job is to get a certain number of unicorns in your stable, and once you get enough, you win.
Right.
But some of these unicorns allow you to steal unicorns from other people's stables. Some of these unicorns count for double the space. Some of these unicorns allow you to, and there's magical powers that allow you to kill other people's unicorns, destroy them from the board. And it's a game of like deceit and all about planning for the future and then trying to win this round before anyone knows what your plan is, because if they know, they're going to try to interrupt you.
Right.
And you can block other people's cards with a card that just says nay.
This is the game that I like. These are the sort of games. Yeah. Max's supplementary question was competitive or cooperative. What do you lean to? I feel like the answer for most of us is just easy there.
Yeah, it is, and very different.
Very different, yeah. So refer to previous. I can't remember what episode it was. Refer to previous episode where my comment was, "If you're not winning, what's the point?"
And my comment is, "If you're not affectionate with someone during the game, what's the point?"
Yeah, so that's the answer to that one. So actually, Luca got in touch and basically was saying, we kind of talked about it a little bit, like Luca just doesn't understand D&D. What is D&D? Which I feel like is actually quite a hard question to answer.
That's a good question. D&D is a tabletop role-playing game where you roll dice to determine the outcome of actions that you take. Your dungeon master describes the situation that you're in as the story continues to evolve over weeks and months, often years, sometimes decades. Yeah. And you then make decisions for your character in that world, and decisions that you make have roles attached to them, often a d20, and you roll to see if you were successful on the basis of a sort of target that you're trying to achieve on the basis of your skills and what the DM sets as the target that you need to beat. So you're like, oh, I want to see what's in this suitcase. You roll an investigation check, and if you roll high enough, then maybe you find something special inside that suitcase you weren't expecting. If you roll a natural 1, maybe you break the suitcase while trying to open it. Yeah.
D20, for anybody who doesn't understand it, is a 20-sided dice. There are lots of different sides. You've got like a 4-sided dice, 6, standard 6, 8, 10, 20. Yeah, so there are lots of different dice that you roll. And all your characters have skills. So insight, perception, history, knowledge, and you get a different rating. When you set your character up, you get different ratings depending on like what class they are. So you can be, you could be, I don't know, a wizard, a paladin, tiefling, all these, I don't know, all these things. So, and that gives you different classes and different races have different skills.
My sense is that the real nub of this question is, what is D&D? And I gotta tell you a story that hopefully will reveal what it is. It's about emergent storytelling. We had fought a storm giant, this huge giant, on the top of a monastery as we were trying to rescue the people inside the monastery who were being attacked, essentially. And we defeated this storm giant at great cost. People were really injured. A couple of our party members were dying. And we can heal them if we can get magic to them fast enough. So this storm giant falls in our direction, and I jump over a good friend of mine who, she and I have had this kind of will they, won't they thing going on for literal years. And she had to roll death saving throws before I could reach her. And they rolled it in private. And I reached her, and then I started to cast magic. And in that episode, we didn't know whether she was going to live or die. And I touched her face and I cast the magic, and she described how she reached up to touch my face as suddenly, like, the genuine huge relief that we feel that she has survived. And then this will they, won't they thing, she pulled me in for a kiss.
Fade to black.
It was... Damn. Woo! That's D&D, folks. D&D is the relationships and the characters and the story that gets told that a dice roll will determine.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had a less romantic but basically my party hated me because my previous character was a wizard, and we were trying to find, like, basically there was a white dragon that was terrorizing the world, and we were trying to find clues to where this white dragon was, and we went to a dwarven home, a dwarven castle, and we couldn't find a way to get in. So I'm quite impulsive, so I was just like, right, I'm gonna just chuck a fireball at this door.
Oh,
so
my days!
Wizards can throw. I think I was a level 5, which is quite a powerful fireball that you can throw. You know, everybody stand back. I'm going to throw a fireball at this door. Anyway, got more than enough points to absolutely not just obliterate this door, but half the rock face. We then later found out that that castle was needed to protect the villagers. So I had not only blown the door out. Do not be too impulsive, because your actions will come back to kind of haunt you. So they weren't best pleased that I had, and obviously because fireball as a spell has a big radius as well. So there was a variety of I think there were a variety of like mission helpful things within the radius of the castle door that obviously were just completely destroyed. So yeah, it's great fun, and I would definitely recommend and you can do like what they call one shots, are they? Just like one session. You don't have to do a 5-year campaign. You can just do one session, and it's a really lovely way. That's how I got into it. Just a one evening, one shot session. I think it was with a werewolf who you were trying to find and capture. And yeah, it was great. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
So good.
What other fun questions have we got? Well, I guess what books have you been reading?
Joe Abercrombie's The Devils last year, which I thought was extremely good. I really enjoyed. And I'm trying to get into... I'm currently reading one of Joe Abercrombie's other ones about a woman who is very badly injured and starts to build a group of different miscreants, people who have been kind of trodden down by society and who have become strong as a consequence in various ways to seek revenge. I don't like it as much, but I am hoping that it will be really good. I think Joe Abercrombie has become extraordinarily skilled at characterization over time. His most recent stuff is beautiful when, you hear a character say one line before you know who it is, before he says, like, Alex says, you know who it is, because you can read in the characterization in the line. Stunning book. I'm
writing this down.
If anybody was thinking I should be reading psychology books, you're not wrong. I am reading The Good Life as well, which I'm gradually getting through. Yeah. But what about you, Dan? Are you reading anything fun right now?
Yeah, I'm reading two at the moment. So my nonfiction is John Amiche's new book. So that is It's Not Magic: The Ordinary Skills of Exceptional Leaders. So John was an NBA basketball player, and and is now an organizational psychologist and does lots of work around organizational change. And yeah, his book is really good, actually. It's really kind of passionate, gentle, lots of really practical activities in each chapter as well, about, I guess, this challenging this idea that like exceptional leaders are like they've got some kind of divine talent, but actually, they're quite ordinary skills that we can learn and we can develop and practice. So there's it's really nice. And I mean, this is me basically saying, yeah, John on the podcast will be great. Come on, John, like come and talk to us about leadership.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that's my hope. Like to get John on the podcast, that'd be cool. So that's my non-fiction, and my fiction at the moment is a book called Homegoing by American Ghanaian author Yaa Gyasi, and it's a really, I mean, it's really flipping sad. The premise is essentially two sisters. I think it might be in the 16 or 1700s in Ghana, get split. One gets what's the right word? One gets kind of slave traded to the US.
Gosh.
And then it's down the generations of that family and how that goes. And one remains in Ghana and is still connected to family, and it kind of their lives kind of loop out and kind of eventually kind of slightly touched, maybe like within the story, like 5 or 6 generations later. But amazing book, short book, short story, but yeah, really, really, really enjoying it. So they're my two: Homegoing and The Ordinary Skills of Exceptional Leaders. Yeah.
Really cool. Homegoing. Wow.
Very good story.
That's your reading for enjoyment book. That's pretty heavy stuff, Dan.
Yeah.
Need to get you to some sapphic romance.
But I always read before bed. At my nighttime book at the moment, it's like a friend got us a book of like short stories for winter nights, and they're all ghost stories, all ghost and horror stories.
Oh, that's cute.
So that is cool. I'm enjoying sort of making my way through those. Yeah. Hey, thanks. That's been fun.
It has been fun.
Yeah.
Always. And wow, what a tour of different subjects, like of which I know very little.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think having that connection like with listeners has been great to kind of get their voices here and to just mull over some of those really big topics. I wouldn't be surprised if we did come back to some of those topics as a whole episode. So thanks everybody for giving us episode ideas. Incredible.
And and just wonderful that people are a part of our community together, right? I think It's really lovely that people are part of this thing, and together we're going to try to we're gonna cover some interesting topics this year, informed by you. We're going to get some good educated guests, and we're going to have absolutely no idea where we are going to wind up. But I'm pretty excited to find out.
We'll find out together. See you soon.
Hey, Dan.
Oh, yeah?
I love you.
Love you too. Ciao.